All right, happy people. This is Mr. Wilcox coming to you again from my kitchen table. This will be your last day of notes for Algebra 1, and we're going to finish off the year with factoring polynomials. We have added, subtracted, and multiplied polynomials. So instead of dividing, we are going to factor, and factoring means to find two numbers that multiplied. So the factors of 10 are 1 and 10, because 1 times 10 equals 10, and 2 and 5, because 2 times 5 equals 10. So to find the factor of a polynomial, we're going to find two polynomials that multiply together to get the original polynomial. And here's what we're going to do that. So I'm going to pause for a second so you can pause the video and write this all in your notebook. All right, so to factor, we're going to have a polynomial that looks like x squared plus bx plus c. And we're going to factor it into two polynomials. It's always going to start with x in each polynomial. And then the other numbers we're going to find, we're going to make sure we're adding to get the middle number and multiply to get the last number. So we want to find two numbers that both multiply to get the last number and add to get the middle. So for example, if we have x squared plus 5x plus 6, we want to know what two numbers multiply to get 6 and also add to get 5. So two numbers that multiply to get 6 are 6 and 1, but 6 plus 1 is 7, so we don't want to use that. Two numbers that multiply to get 6 are 3 and 2, so 3 times 2 is 6, and 3 plus 2 is 5. So that is the correct two numbers we want. So we're going to write it as the factorization of x plus 3 times x plus 2. Because a positive 3 times a positive 2 equals positive 6, and a positive 3 plus positive 2 equals a 5. So here are the steps we are going to use to factor. So again, I'm going to pause here so you can write this in your notebook. Hit play when you are ready. So to factor, if we're really stuck, what we can do is we can write out the numbers that multiply to get that last number, because those are the numbers we could use. And then we can add those numbers together, those factors together, to see if any of them add to get the middle. And once we find the numbers that both multiply to get the last number and add to get the middle, we're going to write them out in two parentheses. And you can always check your answer by boxing or foiling those polynomials again to see if you get the original polynomial. So our first example is going to be x squared plus 3x plus 2. So we need to find numbers that multiply to get 2 and add to get 3. So what numbers multiply to get 2? Well, we have 1 and 2. So if I take 1 times 2, I do get 2. And if I take 1 plus 2, I get 3. So that is what we wanted. We want two numbers that multiply to get 2 and add to get 3. So I'm going to write my factorization as x plus 1 times x plus 2, because those are the two numbers we said multiply to get 2 and add to get 3. You do not have to check your answer, but you always can by simply boxing or foiling this out one more time. So I'm going to quick FOIL this out to see if I get x squared plus 3x plus 2 when I multiply. So for FOIL, F stands for first, so x times x is x squared. Outside, x times 2 is 2x. Inside, 1 times x is 1x. And last, 1 times 2 is 2. So if we combine our like terms, I get x squared plus 3x plus 2, which is the polynomial I started with. So my answer for factoring is x plus 1 times x plus 2, and I know it's correct because I checked it. All right, our second example is x squared minus 4x plus 3. So we want to find two numbers that multiply to get positive 3 and add to get negative 4. So the only numbers that multiply to get 3 are 1 and 3. 1 times 3 is 3, but if I take 1 plus 3, I get a positive 4. So how do I get the negative 4? Well, another set of numbers that multiply to get positive 3 are negative 1 times negative 3. That gets me positive 3. And then if I take negative 1 plus negative 3, I get negative 4. So when I factor x squared minus 4x plus 3, the two numbers that multiply to get a positive 3 and add to get a negative 4 are negative 1 and negative 3. So I'm going to have x minus 1 times x minus 4. So that is our factorization of x squared minus 4x plus 3. Oh. Man, sorry. I'm sorry, I wrote that wrong. So we will have x minus 1 times x minus 3 because we have a negative 1 and a negative 3 and a negative 1 and a negative 3. So negative 1, negative 3. That is our correct answer to the factorization of x squared minus 4x plus 3. All right, another example. We have x squared minus 5x minus 24. So in our first two examples, we had numbers that only they were prime, so only one in that number multiplied by the last number. 24 is a little different. So numbers that can multiply to get 24 are 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, and 4 and 6. So if you ever get stuck, this is a very good strategy to try to do your problem with, because now you can see the numbers that multiply to get 24, and you can try to start adding them together to see if we can get negative 5. So we want to get negative 24, so one of these numbers has to be negative and one has to be positive. So let's check it out for adding. If I take 1 and 24, even if one of them is negative, I'm not going to get back to negative 5. 2 and 12, if 2 is negative, I get 10. If 12 is negative, I get negative 10. So that's not helpful. 3 and 8, if my 3 is negative, I get positive 5. And if my 8 is negative, I get negative 5. So it looks like we want to use a positive 3 and a negative 8. So my factorization would be x plus 3 times x minus 8. Order wouldn't matter here. So if you had x minus 8 times x plus 3, that's exactly the same thing as long as you have a positive 3 and a negative 8. Again, you don't have to check your answer, but if you FOIL this back out, you do get x squared minus 5x minus 24. So our correct factorization for x squared minus 5x minus 24 is x plus 3 times x minus 8. All right, one last example, and then we are done. If I have x squared plus x minus 20, remember there is a hidden number in there, and that's in the middle. And if we just have x, remember that means 1x. So we're trying to find numbers that multiply to get negative 20 and add to get 1. So numbers that can multiply get 20 are 1 and 20, 2 and 10, and 4 and 5. So again, we want a negative 20. So one of these will have to be negative. So if I have 1 and 20, a negative 1 plus 20 is 19. So 1 and 20 are not what we want. 2 and 10, if I had a negative 2 plus 10, that'd be 8. Negative 10 plus 2 would be negative 8, not what we want. How about 4 and 5? If I had a negative 4 plus 5, I would get a positive 1, and that's what we want in the middle. So we're going to use the factors of negative 4 and 5 because negative 4 times 5 is negative 20. Negative 4 plus 5 is 1. So to factor this, I would have x minus 4 times x plus 5. Again, order wouldn't matter here. You could have x plus 5 times x minus 4. But as long as you have a negative 4 and a 5. All right, so that is factoring. I hope you all are happy. I hope you're all healthy. And I hope you all have a great day.